I got sick.
Alright, so who here eats sausage for breakfast?
Sausage?
Yeah, once in a while, right? Do you know what's in that? Do you ever really think about what's in sausage? How they grind up body parts like intestines and liver. Basically anything that they don't want, that they can't really sell in a separate piece, they'll just grind that stuff up, they put it in a tube, like an intestinal tube, and you fry that stuff up for breakfast, right? It's kind of gross. Well, von Bismarck's quote is, laws are like sausages, it's better not to see them being made. And I actually disagree with this quote, and I think it also is in line with like a kind of a mentality that we all, especially in modern American society, possess. It's like an obsession with the final product, with the ends, and everything else doesn't really matter, you know? I don't want to see the sausage being made, I just want to eat it. I don't care about the law, how it was made, I just want to follow it. And so I'm going to go over a couple examples of why we should be more focused on the process, or we should be willing to look, kind of peel back the cover, and better understand things that surround our lives, such as laws. And that's the first thing I'm going to talk about. So I'm sure we all watched that video in elementary school, the bill going to Capitol Hill. You know, it seems like a very innocuous, system, and that's why when we follow laws, it's the letter of the law, it's the way things are, we should follow that, right? But actually the way lots of bills get passed is that different political groups with political interests will revise it. So if it's like something about military spending, they'll also add a part about, oh yeah, also like, we're going to reduce the use of like artificial synthesizers and something completely random that's not even related. And that's how they kind of negotiate with each other and negotiate with lobbyists and big money and kind of get things to pass or prevent things from passing. And so for us to like bury our heads in the sand and vote Democrat or Republican or whatever, like it doesn't really matter. I think that's really poisonous, honestly. And we should. No one likes to read the fine print, Like, I don't like to read the fine print, but it's really important for us to be informed citizens. So I think that if you so let's say you're voting for somebody, you can actually look up who donates money to them, and you can also look at what bills are supporting. So you don't have to say forget it, I'm just gonna eat the sausage. You can actually see what's inside. And another example, similar to sausages, would actually be the meat industry. I don't know if all of you had that the U.S. history class where you actually learned, but yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? And so for all of us meat eaters out there, myself included, I probably eat meat 3 meals a day. I'm sorry, that is what it is. But I do that knowing what that means, right? So for those of you that don't know, the meat industry is especially brutal. Like cows, they're actually very intelligent and sentient animals. I wouldn't go so far as sentient. They're pretty intelligent. And they're kept in little pens. Often they never see sunlight. They're basically blind, some of them. And they all get herded into like little machine essentially that just kills them, and they get processed for meat, and that's what we enjoy, paying $40 a meal at whatever nice steakhouse you go to. And I think a lot of us try to ignore that stuff, because once you learn it, it creates like this cognitive dissonance, like you're like, oh, I know this is wrong, but I'm gonna do it anyway, and people are very uncomfortable with that. And I understand that as well, But I think that it's very important for us to choose ourselves to say, okay, well, I know it's hard for me to know these things, but even if I'm going to make a bad decision, I should at least know what the consequences of that decision is. And I think that's part of what being an adult and being an informed citizen is. And so I think today, through those two examples, we've really seen it is important to kind of peel back the curtain and know what's going on, and hopefully that carries into your political and academic lives.
You're the first person to see that.
I know, mine was bad.
All right, well, your attention device was talking about making sausage, which I felt was a little on the nose. Speaking of which, that's probably something that ends up in the sausage. For the quote, it worked. It was okay. And I think you do have a good point that there's a need for us to look at these sorts of things and see what's going on. I think that that's valuable. When you talk about the political stuff, I think that you've got a good point. It stays a little abstract and a little bit vague. You include a couple of things about how bills get made. You make the reference to the Schoolhouse Rock video, which is okay. I appreciate that. But then after that, there's like no detail to what it is that you're talking about. What is it that we need to see? You say, well, look and see who's funding things or who's behind something. What will that tell me? Is that going to tell me that something is good or bad? Is that the way I should be making a decision? You say it without telling us why it is important that you've said that particular point. The second point felt like you went off on a completely different tangent. It's like, now let me talk about meat production, and I'm going, well, maybe there's a connection there, and I can see that, but it sounds more like it's got to do with making sausages than it does, the point that you're trying. I can see that there is a connection, but it doesn't feel like that's the connection that you're making. It just feels like, well, this is the next thing I thought of to talk about instead of it being connected to the theme that you had. It was just like, well, let's talk about, not pig meat, let's talk about cow meat. And I'm going, really? That just felt a little bit weird. Presentation issues. If I'm just listening to you, I think you're doing a very good job. You've got a lot of energy. Sometimes you change the pacing up a little bit for the purpose of kind of building some of that energy in the presentation. But when I'm watching you, I think that your facial expressions are fine, but your eye contact is disengaging constantly. In other words, it's like everything else that you're doing tells me I'm engaged, I want you to pay attention to it, and then I look at you and it's like, but I'm doing something completely different. I'm just performing for you instead of talking with you. So I think that's the thing that you're going to have to work on. It's not that you look away. Well, maybe it is that you look away.
Like that to people too.
Yeah, it's just
one-on-one.
like you're just not talking to us. I can hear what you're saying. I hear energy and engagement in what you're talking about. But boy, when I'm looking at you, it's like I'm looking away from you. I'm just talking out loud in front of you, and you don't want to give that impression, especially with a speech like that. Now, I'll tell you, with a bigger audience and a little distance between yourself, it probably wouldn't be quite as noticeable. But in a more intimate situation like this, it is a lot more noticeable. And I don't know how your friends feel about it. Like you say, you talk to everybody that way. That's going to be a little bit of a problem. I would think that would be a little bit off-putting for them. All right, remember we have a test on Thursday.